Good morning and welcome to Hope Church Online. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Chrissy, and this is Alice, Ezra, and Finn. We're so excited that you're joining us here today. We're going to get started in just 1 minute, but first we have a question for you. We have 2 dogs named Bentley and Thor, and we want you to tell us in the chat what your pets' names are.
We'll be back in just 1 minute with today's service.
I've searched the world, but it couldn't fill me. A man's empty praise and treasures that fade are never enough. Then you came along and put me back together. Is now satisfied here in your love. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you. Lord, there's nothing. Nothing is better
Groups at Hope are a great way to get connected. They help you build Christian friendships and put Sunday's message into practice.
If you're new to Hope, we'd invite you to join First Group, which is just that, your first group here at Hope, where you can learn about our church's DNA, more about what we're about, and make some new friends.
If you're interested in learning more or signing up, check out the link in the chat or visit Hope's website for more information.
In the darkness we were waiting, without hope and without light, till from heaven you came running. There was mercy in your eyes, to fulfill the law and prophets. To a virgin came the word, from a throne of endless glory to a cradle in the dirt. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. To reveal the kingdom coming and to reconcile the lost, to redeem the whole creation. You did not despise the cross, for even in your suffering you saw to the other side, knowing this was our salvation. Jesus, for our sake you died. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. In the morning that you rose, all of heaven held its breath, till that stone was moved for good, for the Lamb had conquered death. And the dead returned the tombs, and the angels stood in awe, for the souls of all who'd come to the Father are restored. And the Church of Christ was born, then the Spirit lit the flame. Now this gospel truth of old shall not kneel and shall not fade. By His blood and in His name, in His freedom I am free. For the love of Jesus Christ, who is resurrected me. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. Praise forever to the King of Kings.
Welcome to Hope Church. My name is Tim. I'm one of the pastors on staff here at Hope, and we are in the last week of a 4-week series called Parenting in the 21st Century. Even if you're not a parent, you picked a great week to join us because the principles that you can learn today can be applied to every relationship. Parents, it is so very easy for us to get hooked in and caught into the day-to-day details and even moment-to-moment details of parenting. And we can lose sight of the long-term goal, namely that our kids would have healthy relationships with God, with us, and with others. The Apostle Paul shows us that love is the parenting approach that is necessary for this kind of outcome. Take a moment to listen to Andy at North Point as he gets the ball rolling for us today.
One of the inevitable challenges of parenting is that we love our stuff, right? And we love our kids. And from time to time, there is conflict between our love for our stuff and our love for our kids, or maybe that's just me, I don't know. When our kids were 7, 5, and 3, all 20 months apart, I bought a used high-mileage Infiniti. And it was the nicest car I'd ever owned. It was super dark green. In fact, it looked black at night. It was in pretty much mint condition, and I intended to keep it that way, which was probably my first mistake. And unfortunately, I was alone in that pursuit. So one Saturday morning, I'm taking out the trash in the garage, and I noticed there was something on the hood of my immaculate Infiniti. I walked over for a closer look, and to my utter dismay, discovered that someone had scratched a large capital letter A into the hood of my car. And beside the A were attempts at several other lowercase letters. So, needless to say, I was not happy, and within minutes, my 2 sons were standing on each side of me as I demanded to know who scratched up my car, who messed up my stuff. Silence. And then Garrett, our 5-year-old, piped up. He said this. He said, "Daddy, Allie did it. Allie did it with a rock." Allie did it with a rock. Allie, who was a whopping 3 years old. So I called Allie out to the garage. I pointed to my hood and I said, "Allie, did you do this?" And she smiles at me and she says, "Yes, sir, Daddy. I practiced my letters," her letters. And yes, she had. She had been practicing her letters on the hood of my car with a rock. So what do you do, right? I mean, last time we were together, I told you that we disciplined our children for the 3 Ds: dishonesty, disobedience, disrespect. I'd never told my kids specifically, don't practice your letters on the hood of Daddy's car with a wok, so it wasn't really disobedience. She admitted it with a smile, so she wasn't being dishonest, and she certainly didn't mean any disrespect. And then, there's no way for me to explain to a 3-year-old the significance of what she'd done and what it was going to cost me in terms of dollars and time and hassle. Daddy's going to have to take the car to the shop. What's a shop? I'm going to have to rent a car. What's rent a car? Then I'm going to have to pay for the repair. She has no context for any of that. And of course, it would have been absurd for me to require her to pay for the damage. So what do you do in a situation like that? I did the only thing I could do. I said, "Allie." I knelt down and kind of got eye to eye. I said, "Allie, please don't do that anymore." She said, "Yes, sir, Daddy." Then she hugged me, went back inside, and she never practiced her letters with a wok on the hood of my car again. Hey, today we're wrapping up our series, Parenting in the 21st Century. Parenting in the 21st Century. If you're a parent, if you're about to be a parent, if you hope to be a parent, maybe you're helping another parent parent, or maybe you're watching your own kids parent, this series is for you. It's actually for really anybody who feels the weight and responsibility of equipping an infant, a child, a teenager, or even a high school student for life. Now, if you're joining us for the first time, or you missed any of the previous episodes in this series, this entire series is actually available on the site or app you are currently using. Now, as I pointed out in the first episode of this series, when it comes to good examples of family and parenting, the Bible is not all that helpful. In fact, the Bible is not even all that encouraging. By modern standards, it's pretty much an encyclopedia of family dysfunction. But, and this is the good news, Jesus and the authors of the New Testament provide us with basically a North Star to guide and inform our parenting. And while Jesus never talked about parenting directly, he laid the foundation for New Testament parenting when he laid the foundation for New Testament behavior. And he laid the foundation for New Testament behavior when he issued his new covenant command. He called it his new command. He said, "A new command I give you." And specifically, the new command was for us to love others the way that he, Jesus, loved us. And the way forward, I believe, and this is what we've been talking about, the way forward for us as parents is actually embedded in this one big, all-encompassing command. And I say embedded because the implications for parenting aren't all that apparent on the surface. But again, Jesus wasn't talking specifically to parents. Fortunately, as we've said, the Apostle Paul came along and he gave us some handles, some love handles. Essentially, here's what he said. He said, this is what the Jesus brand of love looks like. Here's how the Jesus brand of love behaves. Here's how it behaves under pressure. Here's how it behaves at home. And while Paul scatters his applications throughout his New Testament letters, his most famous explanation, I think his most famous explanation of what the Jesus brand of love looks like and behaves like is also his most instructive for us parents. And it's found in the 13th chapter of his first letter to Christians living in ancient Corinth. We call it 1 Corinthians. Now, in part 2 of this series, we began our journey through Paul's application list. But you'll remember, we only got 3 words in that first time. We got to this: love is patient. And we got kind of stuck there because parenting often falls apart there. Then last time we were together, we made it through 3 more of his applications. Love is kind. And we said that kindness is loaning someone your strength rather than reminding them of their weakness. It's loaning your children your strength rather than constantly reminding them of their weakness. And then he says this: love does not envy, it does not boast, and it is not proud. And then, if you'll remember, we spent a good bit of time on this next one. Love does not dishonor others. And we said that honor and mutual respect are actually at the heart of every mutually satisfying relationship in the home and outside the home. So honor, we said, is a better goal for parenting than obedience. Obedience basically answers the question, how low can I go? Honor points us in an entirely different direction.
Let's continue to unpack the Jesus brand of love and what it looks like and what it lives like. This is not just about us learning about this love, but it's learning to live in this kind of love. It's learning to live with Jesus's brand of love in our everyday lives. This could have long-lasting impact on our lives and the lives of those that we influence. I love the way that the Apostle Paul is so descriptive and gives us practical handles to help us see what love is all about. So let's continue to walk through 1 Corinthians 13. Listen very carefully to these words found in 1 Corinthians 13. It's speaking of love, and it says, "It is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails." You may have noticed that Paul tells us what love isn't as well as what love is. This is very, very helpful because we get a clearer picture of what we're aiming at. Think of it this way: Jesus's brand of love causes us to not come at our kids, but to come alongside our kids. So how do we stop coming at our kids and coming alongside our kids? Let's walk through and unpack what Paul is getting at. First, he says that love is not self-seeking. And to be honest, we use this word love in so many different ways, so many different contexts here in our culture and in our day. Honestly, I've said repeatedly that I love tacos, or I love burgers, or I love my wife Jenny, or I love my kids Kelly and Michael. We use this word love so often to describe something as trivial as a taco and something as profound as our marriage relationships. But if we're honest, we love these things for what they can do for us. We love tacos because they taste good. We love burgers because comfort food makes us feel better. Some of us may love our spouse or love our kids primarily for what they can do for us. To be honest, this is not Jesus' brand of love. At its root, this is selfishness. But love defined in this passage is a love that is others focused. How often do we love our kids when it's inconvenient for us? What would happen in our families if we as parents loved each other and loved our kids with a selfless love? What kind of love, this kind of love, honestly, is foundational to developing healthy relationships with our kids as they grow. This kind of love is best seen in the life of Jesus, who loved us not because we're lovable or we can do anything to make him feel better. Jesus loves us because at his core, he is love. It's his very nature. The next attribute of love that we're going to look at is love is not easily angered. Now, earlier in this message, Andy from North Point talked about how his little daughter was scratching letters in the hood of his car. And that could certainly elicit anger from any one of us because that child is making our life more difficult. But love described in this passage is not easily angered. Rather than pretending that we'll never feel angry, Scripture simply says to be slow to become angry. It describes God being slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love. And this description is quite telling. The truth that God is measured in his wrath and is immediately followed by the truth of his overflowing love actually is an earth-shaking reality. He is slow to anger, but abounding in love. What if that described us in relation to our kids? These two thoughts of being slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love are connected, and the connection might be obvious. Love, honestly, puts the brakes on anger. It slows down for the sake of the one being loved. So our kids desperately need us as their parents to love them and to not become easily angered with them. Being hot-tempered usually involves making snap judgments, seeking instant vindication, and refusing to grant a second chance. But that's what our kids need more often than not. They need a second chance. However, true love refuses to jump to conclusions, to take revenge, or to hastily judge anyone, especially our kids. The fact that love is not easily angered highlights God's patient love for the world. He is patient with you, not wanting any of us to perish, but for everyone to come to repentance. May God grant us this type of love that can keep our anger in check. Love also keeps no record of wrongs. As a parent, do you find yourself keeping a record of your kids' wrongs? And if so, why might you do that? One reason could be that you're keeping a record of their wrongs to use them as ammunition against them later when they hurt you. And that may be a power play on a parent's part to try to put that child in their place. But the reality is, God has already given us authority over our kids. As parents, we already have authority over them. And in fact, God placed us in authority over our kids so that we could show them what yielding to healthy authority looks like. The end game here is that our kids would willfully surrender to God's authority in their lives. Paul reminds us that Jesus' brand of love does not keep record of wrongs. Your kids are going to do wrong. They're human. It's very easy for us to use this power against them. But God did not hold our wrongs or our sin against us. He called our sin sin, and when we confess our sin, He is faithful to forgive us of our sin. He doesn't hold our sin against us. In fact, what He did is He placed our sin on Jesus so that we could have a new lease on life, so that we may abound and we may flourish in His love. Paul writes in the 2nd chapter of Romans that it's the kindness of the Lord that leads us to repentance. So what we're looking for in our kids is not just changed behavior, but a changed heart. And it's actually kindness that leads them in that direction. Imagine with me, and imagine if all of us loved our kids the way that God loved us. Wouldn't that be amazing? I think it would be truly transformative in our everyday lives, and as we raise our kids and as we go through the struggles of our day-to-day lives. If our kids knew that we were loving them with God's love, they would be radically changed. Now, Paul goes on to say, love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. Now, honestly, I have a confession to make here. Sometimes I personally delight in evil. There have been many times that I've been caught for speeding, and some of these times even in the presence of my wife and kids. And usually I make a comment that indicates that my heart is delighting in rebellion against the law. I like the feeling of rebelling. But Jesus' brand of love does not delight in evil, but rather it rejoices in the truth. If you're like me and you delight in rebelling, ask God to change your heart. And better than that, ask your wife or your spouse and your kids to pray with you and for your heart to change. Confess your sin and accept God's abundant grace that leads to heart change. Because bottom line, we don't want to just change our behavior. We want to change our hearts. And when our hearts are changed, our kids are going to see that change, and they're going to be able to grab hold of this idea that there is a love that changes our hearts. When our kids see our hearts changing, they honestly get a front row seat to what life change can really look like. It may be hard to be that honest, but think about the potential growth in your family and what could happen in your life and in the lives of your kids if you confess your rebellion and seek truth and seek to build a relationship not only with God but with your kids that's honest and open. The next attribute of love found in this passage is that love always protects. Kids need protection to thrive. They need to know that they're safe physically, emotionally, and spiritually. When they are safe, they can be honest. The big point of today's service is that our kids would have a healthy, long-term relationship with God, with us as their parents, and with others. For that to happen, they need to know that they're safe and protected. Jesus' brand of love always protects. This means we come alongside our kids, not at our kids. Kids are vulnerable in many ways. They start small and helpless, and for many years they stay that way. If they know that we're coming alongside them and not at them, they're more likely to hear the words that we are saying to them to help guide them along life's path. Love always perseveres, and love never fails. In 1989, an 8.2 earthquake almost flattened Armenia, killing over 30,000 people in less than 4 minutes. Surprisingly, such tragedy often brings the best out in people. Let me show you the loving heart of a father. In the midst of chaos and destruction, he rushed to his son's school. But instead of a school, he found a shapeless heap of rubble. Imagine what went through his mind. In the case of this father, the sight of rubble and ruin made him spring into action. He ran to the back corner of the building where his son's class used to be, and he began digging. Why? What real hope did he have? What were the chances that his son could still be alive and have survived this devastating earthquake? All he knew is that he had made a promise to his boy that he would never leave him. It was this promise that animated his hands and motivated his heart. As he began to dig, well-meaning parents tried to pull him away and tried to pull him out of the rubble, saying, "It's too late. They're dead. You can't help. Go home. There's nothing you can do." Then the fire chief tried to pull him off the rubble and saying, "You know what? Fires are exploding, and that's going to happen everywhere, and it's just going to get worse. You're in danger. Go home." Finally, the police came and said to him, "It's over. Now you're endangering others. Go home. We'll handle it." But this father continued to dig for 8, 12, 24, 36 hours. Then, in the 38th hour, he pulled back a boulder and heard his son's voice. Immediately, he screamed, "Armand!" Back came the words, "Dad." God's love for us is a love that always perseveres and never fails. As people, our love is fickle, meaning that our love won't always persevere, and quite often our love is going to fail because our love is so often situational or dependent on other circumstances. This is where we get to walk with our kids towards Jesus in our everyday lives. We can point our kids to Jesus and to his perfect love that gives all of us hope for a better future. Take a moment right now to watch the Rosenows as they share their experience of raising their daughters to love God, love themselves as their parents, and begin to love others as well.
It was important for us that they got a Christian education. So from kindergarten through college, actually, both daughters have gone to Christian school. And the second thing was, and I think this is to Paul's credit, is he led us in family devotions virtually every night.
Yeah, it started when we were little. Honestly, I can't remember a time that we didn't do them. And yeah, sometimes it was a chore, but if for some reason it didn't happen, we just felt like something was missing. After devotions, we still do this. We take turns praying our own individual prayers, from the heart. Our parents taught us, you can communicate directly with Jesus. And so that has really influenced my relationship with him.
I just think there's no more important job than being a parent. And plus I have very, very, very fond memories of, and I think they do too, of reading together every night, one on each side, picking out books. I can still remember some of the books
We still have them.
We still have all those books. And doing things together, showing that I was interested in their lives and being involved. I think that helped develop a relationship with them.
Because my parents are so filled with the word, I think they're just such godly people in general that it really kind of set that example for me, something that I always had to look up to. Just because they had that presence in my life, I think it really helped just kind of naturally develop a really peaceful, kind of harmonious relationship between us.
I always felt like I could go to them with any problem or concern. They, offered advice and encouragement and prayer, but they still taught me how to and expected me to identify and solve my own problems, which I'm really grateful for. But that doesn't mean that, they weren't there when I was in a bind. Definitely bailed me out of a few situations.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Leah can attest to that too.
It pays off when you sow into your family. Believe me, it's sowing dividends right now. It happened today. I just got out of the hospital. I had COVID-19, and it was a rough time because they don't let anybody come in their family or nothing. So after a couple of days in there and just kind of feeling lonely, my family got on the phone for the last 2 nights, and we had our family devotion. Today, I didn't know if I was going to have to stay another day. And I told my family, I need your prayers to see if I can get out of here. And they responded instantly. We're on it. We're going to do this. And 30 minutes later, the doctor called in and said, okay, they've decided you can go home today. And I was just blown away. I was totally blessed this afternoon. And I just thank God for keeping us close to His Word on a daily basis.
After watching that video, you may feel like that family did a great job, but it's too late for our family. Our family does not live that kind of life. We haven't loved our kids with Jesus's brand of love. So what do we do now? Parents, honestly, it is never too late to change what's happening in your home, to change what's happening in your relationship with your kids. Parents, the direction you are heading in is far more important than perfection. In fact, on this earth, we're never going to live perfectly. We're not going to love perfectly. But if we can take a step forward to love our kids with Jesus's brand of love and do that again tomorrow and the next day and the next day, we actually reach the long-term goal of our kids developing a healthy relationship with God, with us, and with others. It is never too late. So don't think for a minute that it's too late. Remember that direction is far more important than perfection. So what direction are you leading your family in? You can start heading in this new direction of learning to live in light of Jesus's brand of love today. Imagine what could happen in your family if you walked in love just as Jesus loved us. Imagine with me for a moment the legacy you could leave as you learn to love as Jesus loved us. The outcome we want for our kids is to develop healthy relationships with God, with us, and with others. Healthy relationships are rooted in this Jesus brand of love. Think about it this way. God loves us. Therefore, we get to love our kids. Paul writes in another book in the Bible, he says that God demonstrated his love for us in this. While we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. God's love for us is not dependent on our behavior. He loves because he is love. Know, first of all, that you are dearly loved, and let his love move you from coming at your kids to coming alongside your kids. So I have a closing question for you today. How will you tangibly love your kids with Jesus's brand of love? Now, I'm not saying you need to figure all this out in one day. Pick one specific area to focus on and ask God to help you as you grow in living this love out in your everyday life. We have another family with 2 adult daughters that also wanted to share what God did in their relationships with one another. So take a moment to specifically listen for Jesus's brand of love in this next video.
I would say one of the big things is taking us to church in Sunday school on Sunday. It was something that I don't ever remember not doing. It was always done from the very beginning, which really helped strengthen our relationship with God.
That just helped us to realize the value of the community at church. And then teaching me to pray every day, to be thankful for the blessings that I was given, as well as to have a place to go with any anxious feelings that I had, or if I needed guidance for anything.
We always made an effort to have family dinners together with the girls when they were younger, and we would share events about our day, and that would help keep the lines of communication open with the girls and us.
You know, I think they really led by example. They have always been very attentive, just showing us how to really give our undivided attention to others and their emotions and words.
I would say they were a very good support system. Having good communication, they were always there to talk to if we had questions about anything or we needed somebody to talk to, that they were always there for us.
We definitely were not perfect parents, so we had to pray for a lot of guidance as the kids were growing up. So there were plenty of mistakes made, but we do feel really blessed that our children have turned out the way that they have, and that they have stayed connected to Jesus in their adult lives. So that's really a blessing to us.
have been so, so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You have been so, so kind to me. And oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. And oh, it chases me down, bites till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, yeah. When I was your foe, still your love followed me. You have been so, so good to me. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. You have been so, so kind to me. And all the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, finds till I'm found, leaves the 99. And I couldn't earn it, and I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. And oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me.
Thanks so very much for joining us today and for joining us for Parenting in the 21st Century. And before you go, we are reopening in-person services starting next week. And 2 weeks from today, we are going to reopen Kids Connect in person. If you're not able, for any reason, to join us in person, that's totally cool. You can continue to join us right here online. Services will be streamed at 9 a.m. And next week, not only are we meeting in person and online, but we're starting a brand new series called The Kingdom. So join us right back here next week.